Have you ever wondered why being alone sometimes feels safer than being loved? Why the silence of an empty room can feel more comforting than the warmth of another person's presence? It's not because you've given up on people, it's because, somewhere deep inside you, a part of your mind learned that love can hurt. And safety for you has never been about comfort. It's been about control. The control to not be disappointed again. The control to not be misunderstood, rejected, or abandoned. And so you sit in your room, scrolling through the noise of a world that never really made space for you. The light from your phone glows against your face. And the walls seem to breathe with you. Steady, still, dependable. You tell yourself you're just tired, you're just rested. But the truth is, you've created a quiet little world where you don't have to fight for belonging, where you don't have to explain why your heart feels so heavy after conversations that were supposed to make you feel light. You feel safe at home, not because you hate people, but because you've been hurt by them, and the body remembers pain far longer than the mind admits. When you grow up in an environment where love feels unpredictable, your nervous system starts to see safety in solitude. You might not even notice it happening. Maybe it started with small moments, your feelings dismissed, your opinions ignored, your emotions treated like they were too much. And slowly, without even realizing it, you stopped reaching out. You stopped expecting to be understood, because every attempt to connect came with the risk of being invisible again. So you learned to self-soothe. You became your own host. You learned to keep your emotions folded neatly in silence, like fragile paper, hoping no one would notice how often your heart shakes beneath the weight of holding itself together. That's the strange thing about isolation. It doesn't always begin with rejection from others. Sometimes it begins with rejection of yourself, the version of you that wanted too much, that spoke too honestly, that needed more than others could give. That version was quietly sent away, locked in the attic of your psyche, where only your solitude could visit. And now when people ask why you prefer to stay alone, you can't give them an answer that feels true, because how do you explain that the world outside your walls has never felt like it had room for your heart? Psychologically, this is called emotional self-preservation. It's what happens when the brain associates relationships with pain. The mind creates distance not out of arrogance but protection. Every conversation, every glance, every rejection becomes data for your subconscious. Data that says it's safer here with me, in silence. But here's the hidden variable most people never understand. Isolation isn't the absence of connection, it's the residue of too many connections that broke you. You retreat not because you don't care, but because you care so deeply that the world's indifference feels unbearable. And yet inside this isolation, something profound begins to grow: awareness. You start to see patterns you couldn't see when you were surrounded by noise. You start to notice how your nervous system tenses up when someone gets too close, how your thoughts prepare escape routes during every conversation, how your heart races not from love, but from the fear of being seen. This isn't weakness. This is your psychology trying to protect itself. People who feel safest alone are often the ones who were forced to self-regulate too early. They grew up in emotional environments where love had conditions. Be quiet, be perfect, don't upset anyone. So now, as adults, they find serenity in solitude, because it's the only place where they can finally drop the performance. It's ironic, isn't it, that the same walls that protect you from being hurt also keep you from being loved. You might laugh about it sometimes, that quiet, bitter kind of laughter that doesn't reach your eyes. The absurdity of it all. Humans are social creatures by design, yet somehow the more connected we become online, the lonelier we feel inside. You could be surrounded by hundreds of people, yet none of them would notice the sadness in your smile. And so you pull back. You stop texting first. You cancel plans. You find excuses not to go out, telling yourself you just prefer staying home. And maybe you do, but beneath that preference there's a hidden wound whispering, it's safer to be unseen than to be disappointed again. This is the psychology of emotional isolation. It's not depression, though it can look like it. It's not apathy, though it can feel like it. It's a psychological defense, built over years of emotional misattunement, meaning your emotions weren't mirrored, understood, or validated by the people who were supposed. The human brain learns from experience. If every time you reach out you're met with silence, it starts to predict silence. That's how the brain builds what psychologists call internal working models, subconscious blueprints for how relationships work. If your model says love equals pain, then solitude becomes your medicine. But medicine can become poison if you take it for too long, because slowly, safety starts to feel like prison. The quiet starts to echo. You realize the walls that once protected you are now whispering back the same sentence every night. You're alone because you're unworthy. And that's when the real battle begins. Not with the world, but with yourself. You start questioning, am I the problem? Did I isolate myself too much? Why can't I just be normal like everyone else? But those thoughts are lies your trauma tells you. They're not reflections of truth. They're reflections of unhealed pain. There's a part of you that still wants to be seen. The same part that once looked up in a crowded room, hoping someone would meet your eyes and stay there long enough to recognize you. That part of you still exists. It's just buried under years of emotional self-protection. And this is where transformation begins. The moment you stop judging your isolation as weakness and start understanding it as information. Your solitude isn't a flaw. It's showing you where you lost trust, where you stopped feeling safe, where you began to believe that love must be earned. See, people often think healing means becoming social again, but real healing is about learning that you can feel safe with people, not just away from them. It's about teaching your nervous system that connection doesn't always end in pain, and that starts small, painfully small, letting someone in just a little, being honest when you'd normally deflect, saying, I'm tired, instead of I'm fine. These are the tiny revolutions that begin to rewire your brain for trust. You don't have to run out into the world and become the life of the party. You just have to stop running from yourself. Because deep down, loneliness is not the absence of people. It's the absence of understanding. You can be surrounded by others and still feel invisible. Or you can sit alone in your room, completely isolated and still feel connected. If you understand yourself, that's the paradox of healing from isolation. You reconnect with the world by first reconnecting with your own heart. And yes, there will be moments of discomfort. You'll feel exposed, anxious, maybe even guilty for wanting connection again. That's normal. Healing is not linear. It's cyclical. It's revisiting old wounds with new awareness. There will be times when you slip back into silence, when you crave the safety of being unseen. But each time you'll know you're not hiding anymore. You're resting, you're recalibrating, you're learning how to hold yourself gently, instead of disappearing. And maybe one day, you'll realize that the safety you were always chasing was never about the walls around you. It was about the peace within you. When that day comes, being alone won't feel like protection. It'll feel like choice. And being with others won't feel like danger. It'll feel like freedom. You'll sit across from someone, and instead of calculating what to say, you'll just be. Because finally, you'll understand that love isn't something you earn by being perfect. It's something you allow by being real. That's when you'll know you're free. Because freedom isn't found in isolation. It's found in the quiet confidence that you can face the world without losing yourself again. So tonight, if you're sitting in your room, staring at the ceiling, wondering why you feel safer alone than with people, remember this: you're not broke, you're healing, you're learning what safety really means. And when you're ready, the world will still be there, waiting, imperfect, messy, but full of people who are also scared, also lonely, also trying to heal. Until then, keep your solitude, but let it be a garden, not a grave. Let it be where you rest, not where you disappear. Because the psychology of isolation isn't just about why you hide, it's about how you learn to return. And when you finally do, you'll realize that the safest place was never the room you locked yourself in. It was the part of you that never stopped hoping someone would knock on the door.